record it and then going to share the screen. So I remember last time we went over 2 notebook. So today it's the third one. It's in the data cleaning. It's unit 08 West Book 2. Okay, the second one. So this is second one. Mostly it's regarding string manipulation. So regular expression. So it's a quite a useful concept. Okay. So regular expression. So string handling. It's a quite useful concept. Okay. So first, let's see. And I believe all of you are very familiar with the split function. Is it? So here it shows the example. So we have the string, is it, and separated by comma, and also there's some space, is it? And if you call split, and if you specify the delimiter, and it will extract every single word out of this original string and return you as a list. So what it returns is a list of string. But be careful here, the space is still there, is it? And then next one is if you also want to get rid of some other extra letters from your extracted string, what you can do is you can do strip. Is it? You can do strip. So over here is you're going to work on the list. And so you use a for loop. And what we call this previously, we also learned, is it? So regarding this, and then if there is any space, is it? And you're going to remove it. So the result, you will get this. It's much more cleaned, is it? And this expression previously we also learned. This is called list comprehension. That's what we learned. And the next is you can also assign a list to some individual variables in this case. And then you concatenate each individual word. So this is also pretty straightforward. So this time you use a double colon to concatenate all of the strings. And then over here, it also shows you can do like a join, okay? But the nice thing for the join is that it's faster, okay? So if you have a lot of strings and you want to concatenate them together, maybe you can consider the join function. And what next Sarah does is, you can also apply strings like index function or find function to give you some, to kind of search some subset, some substring and tell you where they are, is it? And over here, the very first is you also want to check if a certain word within a string, then you can just do in. So this you can use. And over here it shows you can also call the index function to find where it is. Is there something you want to look for? Is it? It's not just limited to like a colon or period or like a semicolon. You can also find some other thing, okay? And it will tell you the first occurrence of that, the location, the position location. And here I try to find the colon. Of course, it's not there. So that's why it's a return -1. And you can also do count. So find how many times the specific substring in it. And you can also do replace. Okay, so replace, you substitute it, is it? And here it says you try to substitute the colon and with you substitute the comma with the colon, is it? And over here you substitute the comma with nothing, is it? That's why the result you will see you get all of them together, is it? Okay, so that's just a review of the regular string that function that we already learned. And what's the next part is, like I just mentioned, it's quite useful and helpful when you do a lot of string processing, especially when you do data analysis. A lot of times there are quite a comprehensive our paragraphs, and you need to do some processing. And then this regular expression will be very handy. Then to use the regular expression, what you need to do, you need to import the regular expression package. So you import RE, okay? And next we are going to take a look how to use it. And over here, so you have the string. So this is a string, is it? And it's separated by white space. So just a space or tab, is it? And then you can just call regular expression. So here RE dot. So RE comes from that module, is it? So you call RE dot. So this is a regular expression. This is not a Java, not a Python strings split. Okay, this is a regular expression. So you call regular expressions split. And then you specify what is the delimiter is. So in this case, it's by space. There's any white space. And you're going to split on what? On this text, okay? And you may ask what that plus mean, is it? So this plus means you allow more than one white space, is it? Because after this full, we have more than, after the full, you have more than one white space, is it? So that's why you put the plus. So this plus sign, and this belongs to part of the regular expression. So you define the pattern, okay? So basically what we call this, so this is your pattern. So with the regular expression is you define a pattern. You define a pattern and then you specify, I'm going to look for the pattern to do something. And you can use this pattern to do a lot of things. And just think about it like in internet, is it? If you want to log in some website, they have username, and a lot of times the username has some special way to define it, and the password, is it? And the password needed to meet a certain condition, is it? So with regular expression, it's quite useful to do that. And so regular expression is quite useful. We call it for natural language processing. So natural language processing. And it's also quite useful, like what I just explained, like the password validation and the username validation, is it? And those are called input validation. So regarding this, with the regular expression, it turns out very handy, okay? So the main point here is you need to define the pattern, okay? So over here, the pattern, this plus sign, that just means whatever you define before, over here is a space, is it? But it will allow more than one space. And if you don't define the plus, then it will just look for the pattern with a single space. Then you will miss something. So not that flexible. And after class, you can try. You take off the plus, what you will get, okay? So that's the starting point of the regular expression we use. And for regular expression, here it says you can also compile a regular expression with re.compile. And once you define this pattern, so basically in this case, this pattern you define, and then you can repeatedly use, not just like in this case. In this case, you only use once, is it? That a regular expression, you only use one. And here, you define it. So basically, you assign it to some variable, and then you can just go ahead to use it to apply all kinds of cases of if the pattern matches, is it? So what over here is, if you want to compile a reusable pattern, so be careful. It's a reusable pattern, then you can call re.compile, and then you specify the pattern. So whenever you specify a pattern, it's always within the quotation mark. And then let's see here, it shows, is it? And then you can do the split using that pattern to do the split, okay? And you can also use the pattern to find what are all of the patterns are. So here it gives you, okay, all of the patterns that meet that condition, meet the pattern. So here it shows one scenario of using the regular expression to do the application. And next one you will see it's quite useful. And also a lot of the time here it says, because maybe within your string, you also have slash or something, etc. And here it says to avoid unwanted escaping with the slash in regular expression, etc. And we can do raw string. And the raw string always identified by that R before the string literal, etc. Then it will deal as a raw string. And here it says it's highly recommended with a regular expression. Okay, then next let's take a look. So we have this string. Okay, this is multi-line of string. And you can use 3 quotation mark. Previously we learned, okay. 3 quotation mark is a multiple line of the string. And then let's see here, we define this pattern. And this pattern is based on the raw string, is it? And this pattern looks kind of complicated, is it? So let's see what it's combined. It consists, so you have square brackets here. So here you have square bracket. So whatever inside the square brackets you defined, so with the square brackets, you define set of characters. That's going to be accepted by the pattern. Okay, so that's one set. This set includes what? Include all of the uppercase A to Z and 0 to 9 digit, period, underscore, percentage sign, plus, and minus. So it will take all of those, okay? And what is the second one? Then after it, it can take, what over here shows this plus. This plus is like what we just defined. So this means you can take 1 or more than 1. Repeat of this set. Okay, repeat of whatever in this set, not just a single one. And after that, you need to have this at sign. Okay, and after it, so the pattern is some letters, is it? And more than 1 and at. And then you have the second set. The second set is built from A to Z, 0 to 9, a dot, and a dash. And it can also occur more than once. After that, it can have a slash, a dot. And follow that, it has another set. The other set just comes from A to Z. So that's what it defines, is it? And also over here, so what is the curly brackets, is it? And with the number. So what over here it means, then it's going to be greater and equal than 2, is it? And less and equal than 4. So it's going to be within this range of this set, the number of times it occurs. So that's what this pattern means. So it's a kind of comprehensive, is it? But for regular expression, we see this kind of combination a lot, okay? So here it also shows how do you build, how do you create a pattern. And for this pattern, basically by the examination, you can find it mainly looks for like email address because it has that at sign, is it? And you compile that expression, is it? And over here, you can also set the option for your pattern. So in this case, it says I'm going to ignore the case. So it doesn't matter it's uppercase or lowercase. So both it will take, okay? So you can also specify the flag. So the pattern you compile your pattern, is it? And then you can find all of the text that meet the pattern, is it? Then with with this, then you plug in that multiple line text, is it, with the find all. Then what it returns, it gives you all of the patterns that matches. So all of the string that contains the pattern, then it will return you. So you can do find all to find all of the patterns that match, okay? And what next is consider about the search function with the regular expression. And so here it says the search returns a special match for the first one. Okay, so just remember it's not all. If you want to find all, you need to call it find all function. The search will find the first one, okay? And then here you can get the result. Okay, so what the search gave, and then you can find it and using the slicing. So here we use the slicing. And then next, what here says a match. What does match do? Okay, so regular expression, the match says return none. Okay, because it says it only match if the pattern occurs at the start. Okay, at the start. And here says at the start, it doesn't match. Okay, so that's why it returns none. And then next, what we can use is, once you build that pattern, you can also use the pattern to do some substitution, is it? So then you can call the sub function. So here, whatever the email address part is, it you want to substitute them all to this new word called redacted. And if you apply it, you will say, oh yeah, they are gone. They change it to all of the redacted. So that's this one. And then next one, let's take a look at this new pattern. And I'm not sure if you may say, oh, this pattern looks just the same as the previous one, is it? But if you take a close look, you will find it's different because you have the pair of parentheses. That's it, you have the pair of parentheses. So what does this do is, and here it says you want to find of the email address, is it? But you also want to segment each email address into different components. So you want to find the multiple segments within a pattern, is it? Then how do you do it? Then you can use this parentheses. So you group whatever segment you want to be a segment, then you just put them within that parenthesis. And with the pattern is that, so you compile the pattern. After you compile the pattern, and then you just say, oh, I'm just going to see if I can find any segment within a specified string, is it? So here it says, oh, you do the match, is it? And it does find it. So, and how do you get all of the segments out? You need to call the groups function. So the groups function return you all of the matching segments, okay? So that's the idea here. Okay, and you can also do the find all, is it, using that new defined pattern. And then in this time, what it returns you is the corresponding segments. And the next cell, what the next cell shows is that pattern we already defined, is it? And you can call sub function, is it? And here it said the sub also allow you to access groups in each matching. It says using some special symbols, /1/2, okay? So over here, what it says is you're going to do some substitution if matching group 1, is it? And it will also add the username. And for the second group, then it also add the domain plus the segment. And for the third one, it will also add the suffix part. Okay, so that's what this usage is. So using the /1// a number, so that it find the group and do something that you specify. Okay, so that's regarding this part. And what the next part try to show is, it says vectorize the string function in pandas. Okay, So let's see how do we do this. And over here we have a dictionary. So this is a dictionary. You have the name, then you have the corresponding email address, is it? And from the dictionary, you build the series, because anyway, series is one-dimensional labeled array, is it? So the array got a label. So that's why when you do the output, you have the label and the email address. And with pandas string function, you can also do some find function, is it? You can call the data string, then data contain to do some searching. Okay, so that's a searching. And what this next part shows is, where is our pattern? Pattern, and I believe the pattern we defined previously, is it? Okay, yeah. So over here, we define the pattern, the email address pattern. And with, that's email address pattern we define. And over here, what we use is, you can also use regular expressions pattern with pandas string find all function. Then in this case, you call the data string data find all, and then you find the pattern, is it? And over here, it's you ignore the case. And then it gives you the whatever the pattern it matches, is it? It returns. And you can also call the match function, okay, to find if you can find the pattern, and then it will return you either true or false, is it? And the last one is just a regular one, just do the string slicing, okay? So that's our first part of that's data cleaning. So do you have any question regarding what we just went over? And it's very useful, okay? So just remember, regular expression is very handy and useful. Okay, if in the future, if you're going to do data analysis, you're going to use it a lot. And not just that case, even you do like a web development, the concept also used a lot in like a web or mobile development. Because especially like if you want to do user input, like any input, we call it validation. The validation. So you're going to verify if certain input meet certain of the definition that you want. Is it suppose like for password, normally it says, oh, you want to have uppercase, lowercase, and the length. Is it maybe also want it to have special letters, something like that, and the numbers, is it? And then you can see with a regular expression, you can define your password pattern, is it? So whenever the user creates his password, then you can use the pattern to try to match. If it doesn't match whatever you define pattern, then you won't let it, is it? You can, you say, okay, you need to go back to redefine your password as whatever the specified pattern. Okay, so that's regarding the data cleaning part. So next, we are going to take a quick look about file processing. So next part is file processing. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to record to share the. This time I need to use a different one. Okay, so this, you can find this notebook. The name is called Note 6-01, okay, on our course website. And the very first thing, it's pretty straightforward. We are very familiar, is it, to deal with the CSV file. So pandas, you just call the read CSV, and then you will get a data frame. Okay, and the next one shows you can also call read table. Okay, then what it does is reading into a table. It's not a data frame, and you can specify what the delimiter is. Okay, And with the read CSV, you can also have some options, like if you want to have a header or not, etc. So over here it says a file without header row, etc. Then you just say, okay, header now. By default, it will give you. And what the next one shows is whenever you read the CSV file, is it to a data frame? Whenever you build a data frame, do you also want to create the column name? Is it? And here, if you want to column your own, you want to create the column name with whatever you name, then you can just put the column name in a list, okay, and set this part as an option when you do read CSV file. So then the output, you can see it has whatever you defined for the column name. And what the next part shows is, it's not just column. You can also, for the index label, is it? So in this case, the index label, so this part, it also comes from the name that you specify, is it? So you can also specify the name with the index. And what the next part shows, it's also kind of new, but previously we learned the hierarchical index data frame. But here is whenever you have a CSV file, if you wanted to create a hierarchical index from multiple columns, okay, then what you can do is with your index column, then you can specify which field you're going to use from the CSV file as the index. Then in this case, you will see the result is that you have two levels of index. So this we call it multiple, we call it a hierarchical index. Is it? So it has one level, it has second level, okay. So to create hierarchical level index, you can just provide whichever the field you want from the CSV file. And what the next show is just a regular text file. Okay, with a regular text file, whenever you wanted to get some data frame, you can do like a read table and you specify the delimiter. Okay, then you can get a data frame. And over here, it shows the read CSV, another option. So for this option, what it does is it, so because sometimes when you read in a file, you may not want to import all of the rows. You want to skip some rows, is it? Then you can specify this option that skip rows. And then in this case, for the result, if you check against the CSV file itself, you will find row 0, row 2, and row 3, they are not, they didn't occur in your data frame. And what the next one shows is how the read CSV file deal with missing data, is it? And deal with missing data, normally it's just by default, it's using NA or now value to fill it, is it? So regarding this CSV file, it has some missing data. So the corresponding slots value is not filled, it's empty, is it? Then in this case, when it creates this data frame, then it will just fill it with the nav value. Okay, so that's what this part means. And what the next one shows is the nav value option. You can also deal with, you can also specify the nav value option, is it? It says it can take either list or set of strings and to consider as missing data, okay? So then in this case, it's, you just specify, is it to specify the missing values, and then what is going to take, so in your file, so within your file, the nav value comes from the null. So if it is null, then that means it's a null, nav value, is it? And we can take a look at that file. That file is called ex5 CSV. So ex5 CSV. So if you take a look at this file, is it? And it has some of the, so we have the name, is it? We have the name. And so it will take the name as the missing data. And over here, it also has, it didn't specify, is it between 6 to 9? It didn't specify. So that's why, did you see it fill it as the nav values? But not just that, it also considers the now. Okay, because otherwise, if you don't specify this, it will not consider this nav as this nav value. So then instead of, so it's suppose you don't specify. Okay, then the data frame over here, what it's going to have is going to have that nav instead. Okay, but then it will only fill the missing value because you only have that both comma, is it? That's considered as empty. So only this scenario considered as empty. Then the other scenario with the net won't consider, okay? But maybe you said, okay, I want to include more option for the net, is it? Then in this case, that's why you specify, okay, net also considered as a null value. So when you do the output, that's how you get this also output as net. And you can try it, okay, after class. So I need to stop this. And what the next one shows is for the nav values, you can also specify, it's called sentinels. You can specify sentinels, is it? So then in this case, it says, okay, sentinel regarding the messenger part, the messenger column, it will consider sentinel as well, oh, full and nav, is it? And in something part, it will consider true as sentinel. And then you're going to use sentinel as nav values, is it? So let's take a look at that file again. So within this file, is it, we have full, is it? We have full. And we also have this true, is it? And if you don't specify, they are supposed to output as full and true, is it? But the running result of this, if you take a look, you will find, is it? Both are considered as nav, is it? How did you come up with this? And also plus this, is it? That's because they all come from the sentinels, is it? And you specify the sentinels with the nav value option, okay? So here it shows you can also specify the sentinels. To resume and move on to the next one. And the next one, let's take another look, another file. Okay, so for this one, let's see. What this one shows us is sometimes you don't want to read all of the file as it in once. Maybe you want to chunk the file into some small chunks and then get each one individually into a data frame, because a lot of times that can save a lot of memory, is it? So then in this case, what you can do is, here there is some options in pandas you can specify. Like it says, okay, display maximum number of rows. You said, I only want to see 10 rows, is it? Then with this CSV file, is it? And when you do read CSV, okay, and you can specify the number of rows that you want to read. Then in this case, you see, I just read the first 5 rows of the data. And we can also take a look at that data. That data is from the 6th. And if you open that data, you will see it's a quite large one. It has over probably 50,000 lines. It's a very large one. So if you want to load it in once as a data frame, that's going to be slow and not efficient, okay, regarding the memory part. So that's why you try to avoid and cut them into small chunks of data and then read in, okay? And here, what the next part show, how do we do, is it? And here you can also call the chunk size. You can specify the chunk size. But here, be careful, this is different from you specify number of row. Specify number of row, you read the CSV, what it return the result. This is a data frame, okay? But when you specify the chunk size and you call the read CSV, what it returns, it says it return a text file reader object. So that's a text file reader object, okay? And if it's just an object, it's not that obvious, is it, as your data frame. And what next, it says the text parser object returned by that it will allow you to do some iteration over the chunk of the file. Okay, and here it shows, okay. So over here, we first create a series, okay, and it's an empty one. Then what we try to do is you try to loop through that chunk of data you just read in, because this is chunk of data, that's not a data frame. And what then next you can do is you say, oh, I'm just going to retrieve the key part. So if we take a look at the original file, the last column is regarding key. Is it? The key is just some single letter. Is there some single letter? Okay, so what here it does is it's going to do the value count. And the value count by what? By that key. So basically over here, what it does, this part does is it's count number of times that a letter occurred. Is it like how many times B occurred, how many times K occurred, something like that. And last class, I remember we discussed the value counts method. Is it? So that's what it does. And so whenever it finds something, then it's going to add to that series. Okay. And it also counts its frequency, is a frequency. And here it shows the result, and you can also sort the value, is it? So with each iteration, so the first time you only get the first 5, is it? And then the next, because you specify the chunk size is 5, is it? So it's every 5. So it will read the data every 5 chunk, every 5 chunks. So that's why if you take a look at the running result, you will see then the series expanded from 5 to 10, and for the third one it's 15. So it's keep expanding, is it? So here it shows once you get the text reader object, then you can use loop to iterate to get each individual record, the basic, some detailed information, okay? And what the next one shows is you can also write your data frame back to CSV file. So to do that, you just get your data frame and call the to_CSV, okay, to_CSV. And then you will get it. So here I got it wrong. Okay, so you can write to CSV, and here it shows one more, okay? And in this case, it's to CSV, you can also plug in with a standard output. With this standard output, what it shows is you can see it, okay? It's not a write to a file, okay? And this time, whenever you write it back, you can also specify your delimiter. This, in this case, not a comma, it's the vertical line, okay, as a delimiter. And that's mostly, I think it's, let me see, anything else. So this is also a write back to file, so it's pretty straightforward. And for this one, it's also pretty straightforward. You can review it after class. So next one, let's take a look what we did in this one. So in this one, Oh, what this part does is you can use regular Python. So over here, what it shows is a regular Python. Okay, the Python. Then, if you wanted to deal with CSV instead of pandas, is it? Then what you can do is you can import CSV. You import this module, then you can call its reader function. Okay, but this is not as convenient as pandas. Okay, to deal with CSV, but this here just shows another option you can do. Okay, and then you can do line by line read. Okay, so that's regarding this part. And over here, it's just, so this is just our regular Python file processing. So you do the open as it, and open it as some string as it, and then you can call the reader from the CSV module, okay, and you open the file. And over here, you do the list, because whatever the reader returns is a group of lines, is it? And here you can use a list to convert all of the lines into a list of lines. So over here, you have a list of lines, is it? And what next try to show us is then over here, you get to the header. Is it the first line of that file is a header? So we can take a look. So this first line is going to be the header, and this is the second line and the third line. So we have the first line as a header, and we have all of the remaining lines to be saved in values. And what next shows that you can also then use it to build a dictionary. Is it over here to try to build the dictionary, the header part you get from header, is it? And for the value part, you are going to zip. Okay, and the value, basically this value is a list, is it? And for the list, previously we learned if you add the asterisk to a list and you kind of unzip it, is it? And you unzip it and then you zip it again, is it, to create tuples, is it? That's how we come up with this kind of output, okay? So those part is from what we already learned before, okay? You do zip with asterisk, that's unzip, and then you zip to create tuples, okay? And what the next part shows is you can also specify the delimiter. And this one is kind of straightforward and we don't use a lot, but if you're interested, you can take a look. And what the next one shows, you can call, so previous one showed reader, you can also call writer to write the data kind of line by line. Okay, it's called write row to write the information back to a CSV file. And so that's the second file processing. Any other questions? If no, then let me just continue with the third one. Then we are done with this section. So what is the third one? Let me remove that. The third one is to deal, because all of the previously we see is the CSV file, is it CSV file? So what next we are going to see is JSON file. And for JSON file, it's very useful because all of the, most of the internet data you get nowadays, they come from JSON format, including like the database. And they are going to, whenever you retrieve at the front end, the back end will always kind of convert the database information to JSON format. And then the front end, you can get the JSON file, is it? So that's JSON. And what JSON looks like, it's kind of, if you take a look, oh, it looks like a dictionary, is it? But it's not a dictionary. Okay, so this is what's JSON file definition. So it has key part, okay? And the corresponding part, the data part for JSON, it can be string, and it can be objects. Okay, and it can be array. So square bracket in JSON is called array. Okay, called array, and it can also be, if you take a look here, is it you have curly brackets? Is it so curly bracket is JSON's object. So you can also have JSON objects as the data part of the JSON file, JSON data. Okay, so that shows the JSON. And over here, if you want have JSON be loaded into your Python program, you need to have the JSON module be imported. Is it? And then you can just call load JSON. And because this object is defined as JSON format, so what the result is going to show you is, see, it's the JSON object, okay? And you can also write the result back to JSON, okay? So then you call the dumps. And what next shows is once you have because the original data is JSON format, is it? So once you load the JSON data, then you can use the data frame, pandas data frame, you can create data frame, is it? Because the result, what we just is JSON, is it? And you specify, okay, result sibling. So result sibling is what? So this is result JSON's key. This is its key. And this is data part. And this is data part. So that's why you will get, and you will get the column from what? From name and age. Is it? So over here, you build a data frame, is it, from a JSON data. So that's why it's also quite useful here, we learn. And you can also directly with pandas, you can also call read a JSON file, is it? And over here, we have the JSON file. So if you take a look, this is a JSON file, is it? And it's JSON format. And if you call pandas read JSON, then it automatically create the data frame for you, okay? So it's quite handy, okay, for JSON. And you can also write a data frame back to JSON, because with a lot of web application or mobile applications, your front end, you retrieve a database, and the database backend will convert them to JSON, and then at your front end, you can load it and read it, is it? And a lot of time, your front end, you will input a lot of data, is it? And send it back to the database at the back end to store them. Then in this case, you see, you can convert back to JSON first, is it? And then the back end will get your JSON file, and then it will convert the JSON file to SQL file, is it? Or like some other non-SQL database, like MongoDB, is it, to store it back to a database. So here it's what we just discussed is it's JSON file a lot of time, then you can combine it with whatever the internet traffic, and you can even do like the real-time data collection, is it? Get from internet, generally speaking, it's not going to be a CSV, it's going to be a JSON file. You retrieve the data real-time. And then you can do real-time analysis, is this on your end. So that's the majority, the major information in this